Dear learners, I welcome you all to this course on understanding human rights. Today we are going to discuss major issues of violations of human rights in India, rights and status of scheduled caste and the scheduled tribes. Before that, we have already discussed major issues of violation of human rights in India, and we discussed the status of minorities and then women, and now we are going to discuss the status of another vulnerable group, that is scheduled caste and then the scheduled tribes. Addressing the problems of SCs and STs, that has been one of the major concern of the political leadership in the country, and this was also this was the matter of consideration for the Constituent Assembly also, and the framers of the Indian Constitution, they realized the plight of the scheduled caste and scheduled tribes, the challenges that these vulnerable groups were facing, and also the historical disadvantage that these groups were suffering from. So that's why the constitutional framework is very, very important to understand. Here we are going to discuss the constitutional framework, that is Preamble, Fundamental Right, DPSP and other provisions. Then we will discuss the other legal measures for the protection of the rights of SCs and STs. Then we will discuss institutional mechanism to protect the rights of the scheduled castes and scheduled tribes. And then, after all these efforts, what is the status of the scheduled caste and scheduled tribe in the country, that we are going to discuss. As you know that India is the largest electoral democracy, but its claim of inclusive democracy falls flat when we analyze the status of vulnerable groups like SCs and STs. And we should remember that Dr. Ambedkar has already warned, and when the Constitution of India was adopted, that we are going to enter into a country of paradoxes. And why? Because you see, on the one hand, we'll be having political democracy, but the social and the economic democracy is still far off. So that is what he said at that time, and even today it seems that in the largest electoral democracy of the world, there are issues of the scheduled caste and the scheduled tribes and their vulnerabilities. They need constant attention from the government. Otherwise, you see, these people have been marginalized for centuries, and still the condition of the scheduled caste and scheduled tribe is not very good. The terms scheduled caste and scheduled tribes were first coined by the Simon Commission and used in the Government of India Act 1935. The people belonging to the scheduled caste and the scheduled tribes suffered from immense disadvantages and discrimination, which stemmed from the age-old hierarchical caste Varna system prevalent in India. There is already a debate whether the scheduled caste people or the scheduled caste, scheduled tribe, are they part of the Varna system or not. Two kinds of opinion you find. There are people who say that they are outcast people, they are not the part of the Varna system, but there are others who say that they are part and parcel of the Varna system. Anyways, we are not going to enter into that detail or that debate, but it cannot be denied that the scheduled caste or the scheduled tribe, they have suffered a lot in this country for centuries, and this suffering, this marginalization, the discrimination that they faced for centuries, that had marginalized them. So the low status, poverty, illiteracy, discrimination, untouchability, violence and injustice affect the scheduled caste extensively. This has been the reality in our country. Now we are going to discuss the constitutional framework that we have already highlighted, which is very important so far as the rights of the scheduled caste and scheduled tribes are concerned. So the SCs and STs are the historically disadvantaged groups. They were denied access to opportunities for development and progress for centuries, and this resulted in their marginalization and backwardness. Considering the social and economic backwardness of SCs and STs, the Indian Constitution has incorporated special provisions for their advancement. The SCs and STs derived human rights from the following provisions of the Constitution. So you see that the backwardness of the scheduled caste and scheduled tribe has been acknowledged by the framers of the Constitution and later on by the leaders of the country. And that's why there have been policy initiative, constitutional provisions, other legislation that you'll find to address the challenges faced by the scheduled caste and scheduled tribes in the country. Now we are going to explain the constitutional framework of the rights of the scheduled caste and scheduled tribes in the country. First of all, they derive their rights, the scheduled caste and scheduled tribes, like other citizens of India, they derive their rights from the preamble of the Indian Constitution, which promises social justice, economic, social, and political justice, and it also ensures liberty of thought, expression, belief, faith, and worship. It also promises equality of status and of opportunity, which is important because these were the people, the vulnerable groups. They are why? Because they were denied the equality of status and of opportunity. So therefore, this mention of equality of status and of opportunity in the Constitution of India is of utmost importance for the scheduled caste and the scheduled tribe. As you know that the preamble sets out the Constitution's basic spirit, principles, objective, purposes, and philosophy, and it is a guide to interpreting the provisions of the Constitution. We should also remember that the doctrine of basic structure is one of the classic examples of judicial innovation to preserve the spirit of the Constitution. It means that the doctrine of the basic structure is not there in the Constitution. It is judicial innovation, but because of that, what has happened that all the objectives that have been emphasized, that have been proclaimed in the preamble, they have become the basic structure of the Indian Constitution, which cannot be changed. So therefore, equality, for example, fraternity, for example, liberty, for example, political, social, and economic justice, for example, all these aims and objects that have been already identified, they are basically the guiding principle to interpret the Constitution of India. At the same time, they are also the part and parcel of what we call the basic structures of the Indian Constitution. Now, after the preamble, we have fundamental rights and some important provisions we are going to take up quickly because we have already discussed fundamental rights in our previous lectures. So I am not going to devote much of time on this fundamental rights because you know better since there was already detailed discussion in the previous lectures. So, for example, Article 14, which ensures equality before the law. The state shall not deny to any person equality before the law or the equal protection of the laws within the territory of India. And here because the discrimination that was faced by the scheduled caste and the scheduled tribes or the former untouchables, you can say, or the Dalits in our country, for them, this provision is something very, very significant. That is equality before the law, because it is not going to recognize the hierarchies in the society. In the eyes of law, everybody is equal, whether a former untouchable, former outcast, or the people from the lowest caste, they all are one now. So that is the beauty of this Constitution of India. Then Article 15, prohibition of discrimination on grounds of religion, race, caste, sex, or place of birth. Because earlier you will find that it was the caste that was the ground of discrimination. So that is why for the scheduled caste and the scheduled tribes, again, this becomes important. The state shall not discriminate against any citizen on grounds only of religion, race, caste, sex, place of birth, or any of them. This has been mentioned. Then, no citizen shall, on grounds only of religion, race, caste, sex, place of birth, or any of them, be subject to any disability, liability, restrictions, or conditions with regard to. You see that from the point of view of the scheduled caste, this is very important. Let me make it clear first of all that the some common problems you can identify that the people from the scheduled caste and the scheduled tribe face, but there are the distinct problem also for the scheduled tribe people. Some other problems are there, whereas for the scheduled caste people some other problems are there. But since we have to wind up our course in 60 lectures, so that this is the reason that I'm not going to take it separately, But you can identify these two groups as the most vulnerable groups in the society, because all the studies that have been conducted, they found that scheduled caste and the people from the scheduled tribes, they are poor, they suffer from poverty, they have been exploited for centuries, they are marginalized, they are socially excluded. Uh, and despite many provisions of the constitution, still they are lagging behind if you see the indicators of development and progress of the country. So their representation is not adequate in the corridor of powers, or you will find in the political or what we call economic spaces of the country. So, here the constitution is granting that no citizen shall, on grounds only of religion, race, caste, sex, or place of birth, or any of them, be subject to any disability, liability, restriction, or condition with regard to access to shops, public restaurants, hotels, and places of public entertainment. The significance of this provision cannot be understood by those people who have not suffered what is called, the denial of access to shops, public restaurants, hotels, and places of public entertainment. But the people from the scheduled caste, of course, the people, the Dalits, they have faced this problem. So that is why this is something a very important provision which have been included in the Constitution of India. Even today, after the implementation or enforcement of the Constitution, these kind of reports are there in the newspapers, or you'll find where persons from Dalit community were denied access to hotels, sometimes temples, and to some other places. But you see, Constitution is saying that it is something that cannot be tolerated. Then again, the use of wells, tanks, bathing ghats, roads, and places of public resort maintained wholly or partly out of state funds or dedicated to the use of the general public. Earlier, this has happened in our own country that, the ponds or the bathing ghats and the wells that were used by the people from the upper caste, the Dalits were denied access to them. So that again, it is quite revolutionary and quite very significant from the point of view of the people, those who are denied access to all these places. Then nothing in this article shall prevent the state from making any special provision for women and children that have been mentioned. So then Article 16, equality of opportunity in matters of public employment. Again, there shall be equality of opportunity for all citizens in matters relating to employment or appointment to any office under the state that have been mentioned here. And no citizen, then you see, no citizen shall, on grounds only of religion, race, caste, sex, place, descent, place of birth, residence, or any of them be ineligible for or discriminated against in respect of any employment or office under the state. Again, this is also significant. Why? Because earlier, the people from the scheduled caste, or the former untouchables, they were denied access to many kind of jobs. Some kind of jobs were imposed upon them, and they were not allowed to go for upward mobility. So that is why again this is very important. Then you see exception clauses are also there that we are not discussing here. Uh, and the provisions are already there in this article. You'll find that the special provisions can be made for the scheduled caste and the scheduled tribes, or socially or educationally backward classes that have been also mentioned here. These exceptions are there, that equality of opportunity will be there, but the special measures are also, they have been, they can be adopted by the state for improving the condition of the scheduled caste, scheduled tribe, and other socially and educationally backward classes of citizens that have been also mentioned. Then Article 17, very important from the point of view of the scheduled caste or scheduled tribes, abolition of untouchability. You will find that these were the segments of the people who were facing this untouchability. And untouchability had different kind of manifestations. Sometime you'll find that pollution by sight and the pollution by touch, this kind of practices were there, where the people from the Dalit community, they were not allowed to come to the area that was inhabited by the people from the upper caste. and untouchability was something that was being practiced in the country. So that is why the Constitution of India has abolished it. Untouchability is now a punishable crime, and there are other legislations also, and there will be punishment for that. Then Article 18, abolition of titles, that is also there. Then we have right to freedom. All these freedoms are available to all. Earlier, this was not available to the people from the scheduled caste, scheduled tribes. For example, all citizens shall have the right to freedom of speech and expression, to assemble peaceably and without arms, to form association or unions or cooperative societies, to move freely throughout the territory of India. You see, this freedom is also important. Certain areas cannot be restricted for the people from the coming from particular background. So that is again important. To reside and settle in any part of the territory of India, that is also important. Protection is Article 20, protection in respect of conviction for offences, that is available for all the people, and that is why all the citizens of India are beneficiary of this particular provision of the Constitution. Article 21, protection of life and personal liberty. Then Article right to education, which has the primary education up to the age of 14 years, and it has become a fundamental right again, and it has become the part of right to life and personal liberty. Then protection against arrest and detention in certain cases, that is again for all the citizens, and of course as a citizen of India, then the people from the scheduled caste and scheduled tribes are also beneficiary. Then we have you see Article 23, prohibition of traffic in human beings and forced labor. Significant from the point of view of the scheduled caste and scheduled tribe. Traffic in human beings and beggar and other similar forms of forced labor are prohibited, and any contravention of this provision shall be an offence punishable in accordance with law. So, this is not allowed, and the Constitution has made it a punishable crime. So that is why bonded labor, for example, that was there in our country, and in the bonded labor, you will find the people from the marginalized communities were there, especially the people from the scheduled caste and the scheduled tribe. So that is why trafficking in human beings and beggar and other similar forms of forced labor are prohibited, and any contravention of this provision shall be an offence punishable in accordance with law. So the beggar and the this trafficking in human beings or the bonded labor, all this is prohibited now. Article 24, then prohibition of employment of children in factories, etc. Again, child labor. Again, you will find most of the people from this community or this segment of our population, that is scheduled caste and scheduled tribe, the children, they are into what is called child labor. So that is why this article is also important. Then right to freedom of religion, that is available to all the people, and that's why the freedom of conscience, that is there. So Dalits, for example, for social equality, or for achieving what is called dignity in the society, they have converted to, for example, Buddhism or Islam or Christianity, and that is the fundamental right for all the citizens of India. They can profess any religion, they can propagate the religion of their choice, they can practice their religion. That is there for all the citizens of India. It is also giving right to all the people not to practice any religion. So that is why this is significant for all the citizens of India, and especially for the people from the scheduled caste and the scheduled tribes. Then right to constitutional remedies, you will find that the father of the Indian Constitution, Dr. Ambedkar, said that it is the heart and soul of the Indian Constitution, and this constitutional remedy is protecting all the rights that are there in the fundamental rights. So we have discussed all those, the writs that can be issued by the Supreme Court of India or by the High Courts for the protection of these rights. Then after that, you'll find most of the civil and political rights are there in the fundamental rights, that is part 3rd of the Indian Constitution, which is legally justiciable. Besides fundamental rights, we have directive principle of state policy, and in the directive principle of state policy, these provisions we are going to read quickly because we have already discussed in detail in our previous lectures. So first of all, Article 37, application of the principles contained in this part, the provisions contained in this part shall not be enforceable by any court, but it is legally not justiciable, but they are of course the guiding principles for the state. Then Article 38. Article 38, a state to ensure, a state to secure a social order for the promotion of welfare of the people. And you see, the state shall strive to promote the welfare of the people by securing and protecting as effectively as it may a social order in which justice, social, economic, and political shall inform all the institutions of the national life. So the people who are suffering from social, you know, a kind of social injustice, you will find that was there in the society. Economically, they were marginalized, and that is here the scheduled caste and the scheduled tribes, they can claim rights under this. And because what is the guiding principle for the state, that it has to strive to achieve a social order in which justice, social, economic, and political shall inform all the institutions of the national life. So, from the point of view of the marginalized communities like scheduled caste and scheduled tribe, this provision is significant. The state, then you see, the state shall in particular strive to minimize the inequalities in income and endeavor to eliminate inequalities in status. Again, you see, facilities and opportunities, not only amongst individuals but also amongst groups of people residing in different areas or engaged in different vocations. Again, this is important. You see, the vulnerable groups we are identifying, and we identified that the scheduled caste and the scheduled tribes, they belong to the vulnerable groups. And that's why this provision is also important, where it has been emphasized that inequalities in status, facilities, and opportunities, not only among individuals but also among groups. That is important, significant. If you compare the economic status of the people from the scheduled caste, most of them, not all, most of them, and the people from the scheduled tribes, you will find that they lag behind in comparison to the people from the upper caste. So that is a fact that should be acknowledged, that this is there, the income gap or the economic inequality that we see. So they suffer from poverty, they are marginalized, they are socially excluded, they are not into good jobs, and especially in the private jobs. For example, if you want to see the CEOs in the multinational corporations, or if you want to see the people from the scheduled caste and scheduled tribe in higher position in the good private companies, then you will hardly find them. So that is the reality. Then we have Article 39, certain principles of a state, certain principles of policy to be followed by the state, and the state shall in particular direct its policy towards securing what? Now you see that the citizens, men and women, equally have the right to an adequate means of livelihood. The starvation deaths have been reported from the tribal communities and the scheduled caste. So in this sense, this is again important, that the ownership and the control of the material resources of the community are so distributed as best to subserve the common good. So in the common good, the beneficiary should be everybody and all the groups. So that is why the policies should be directed in such a way that it is reaching down to the people who are marginalized as well. That the operation of the economic system does not result in the concentration of wealth and means of production to the common detriment. Again, this is there, and it has become a big challenge in our country in the post globalization phase, because the economic gap that we see, the gap between the rich and the poor, that is widening day by day. That there is equal pay for equal work for both men and women, that the health and strength of workers, men and women, and the tender age of children are not abused, and that citizens are not forced by economic necessity to enter vocations unsuited to their age or strength, that children are given opportunities and facilities to develop in a healthy manner and in conditions of freedom and dignity, and that childhood and youth are protected against exploitation and against moral and material abandonment. Many studies have been conducted, and it has been found that the people from the scheduled caste and the people from the Adivasi community, especially, they have been found, especially the children, malnourished children, the underweight children, you will find. So, or even the life expectancy is also lower. So that way, that is a matter of concern, and therefore, this discussion is important from that point of view. Is also. Then equal justice and free legal aid, you'll find that this provision is also there because the cost of justice is very high. Even a country like India, which claims to be socialist secular, so the cost of justice is very high. Most of the people from the scheduled caste and the scheduled tribe are poor, so they cannot afford the cost of justice. So for it is available to all the citizens of India who are poor, but especially since the majority of the poor people are coming from the scheduled caste and the scheduled tribe community, so that is why this provision of equal justice and free legal aid is again important. Organization of village panchayats, that is also there, that the grassroots democracy we are talking about. Then right to work, to education, and to public assistance in certain cases. Again, vulnerable groups of the society, they need more this kind of policies. Article 42, provision for just and human conditions of work and maternity relief. Again, this is important. Article 43, living wage for workers. You see, and their participation in the industry, etc. That provision of cooperative society, uniform civil code for the citizens, that is also there. So no, the state shall endeavor. It is still not there at the national level, the uniform civil code, but this is also mentioned. After that, Article 45, provisions for early childhood care and education to children below age of 6 years, that is there. Now it has been amended, and you will find the state shall. Now the 86th Amendment Act of 2002 changed the subject matter of Article 45 and made elementary education a fundamental right under Article 21A. We have already discussed it. Article 46, especially important, promotion of educational and economic interest of scheduled caste, scheduled tribes, and other weaker sections. The state shall promote with a special care, you mark the words, the state shall promote with a special care the educational and economic interest of the weaker sections of the people, and in particular of the scheduled caste and the scheduled tribes, and shall protect them from social injustice and all forms of exploitation. So, promotion of education and economic interest of the scheduled caste, scheduled tribes, and other weaker section, that is the heading of this particular article. So, you can understand what has been acknowledged, and salute to the framers of the constitution, what has been acknowledged, the backwardness, the exploitation, that these groups they suffer from, and that's why this provision has been added in the directive principle of state policy, and the direction is there for the state to take a special care of these vulnerable groups. They are scheduled caste, scheduled tribes, and other weaker sections of the society. Article 47, duty of the state to raise the level of nutrition and the standard of living and to improve public health. Again, I discussed that most of the time you will find the people from the Adivasi community or the people from scheduled caste, the children have been found malnourished, people underweight, life expectancy also is lower. They suffer from mostly from the poverty. So that is why again this directive that has been issued for the state is also significant. Then additional provisions, besides fundamental rights and directive principles of state policy, we have additional provisions relating with the rights of the scheduled caste and scheduled tribes. Article 164(1), for example, provided that in the state of Chhattisgarh, Jharkhand, Madhya Pradesh, and Odisha, there shall be a minister in charge of tribal welfare, who may in addition be in charge of the welfare of the scheduled caste and backward classes or any other work. Article 243D, reservation of seats. So you will find seats shall be reserved for the scheduled caste and the scheduled tribes in every panchayat, and the number of seats so reserved shall bear as nearly as may be the same proportion to the total number of seats to be filled by direct election in that panchayat as the population of the scheduled caste in that panchayat area or of the scheduled tribes in that panchayat area bears to the total population of that area. So you see that in the grassroots level or the local self-government, the representation of the scheduled caste, which was difficult earlier, they were denied this political space. Most of the time you'll find the people from the upper caste or the dominant caste, they used to be the head of the panchayat, or so that is why through reservation it has been ensured that the scheduled caste or the scheduled tribe, they will be given representation in the panchayats or local self government. So these provisions are there, that you see that not less than one third of the total number of seats reserved under clause 1 shall be reserved for women belonging to the scheduled caste or, as the case may be, the scheduled tribes. Not less than one third, including the number of seats reserved for women belonging to the scheduled caste and the scheduled tribes, of the total number of seats to be filled by direct election in every panchayat shall be reserved for women, and such seats may be allotted by rotation to different constituencies in a panchayat. The offices of the chairperson in the panchayats at the village or any other level shall be reserved for the scheduled caste and the scheduled tribes and women in such manner as the legislature of a state may, by law, provide. Provided that the number of offices of chairperson reserved for the scheduled caste and the scheduled tribes in the panchayats at each level in any state shall bear as nearly as may be the same proportion to the total number of such offices in the panchayats at each level as the population of the scheduled caste in the state or of the scheduled tribes in the state bears to the total population of the state. Article 243T, reservation of seats. Seats shall be reserved for the scheduled caste and scheduled tribes in every municipality. And now you see that the municipality and the corporations that have come, again, the reservation of seats for the scheduled caste and the scheduled tribes as the case may be. So, through this provision again, you'll find that what has been ensured that the representation of the former discriminated caste, or the former marginalized caste, that have been ensured through these articles. So, these provisions you can find in detail, and that is significant from the point of view. And I think, this has led to the development of leadership in the scheduled caste and the scheduled tribes. And they have been highlighting the plight of the groups they are representing. So that is why this provision is significant. Then we have Article 330, reservation of seats for the scheduled caste and the scheduled tribes in the House of the People. So that, that provision is also there. So now the seats are reserved in the Lok Sabha for the people from the scheduled caste and the scheduled tribes. So the reserved constituencies we have. And, this is also one of the significant steps in the direction of the political empowerment of the scheduled caste and the scheduled tribes. Article 332, reservation of seats for the scheduled caste and scheduled tribes in the legislative assemblies of the states. Not only in the Parliament of India, but also in the assemblies of the state, there will be reservation of seats for the scheduled caste and the scheduled tribes. Article 338, Article 338 is talking about the institutional mechanism. So far we discussed the constitutional provisions. So the constitutional provisions were there. Now you see the constitution itself is creating, very significant to note, the institutional mechanism for the protection of the interest and rights of the scheduled caste and the scheduled tribes. So there shall be Article 338, Clause 1, there shall be a commission for the scheduled caste to be known as the National Commission for the Scheduled Caste. Then Article 338A, there shall be a commission for the scheduled tribes to be known as the National Commission for the Scheduled Tribes. Article 366, Clause 24, scheduled caste means such caste, races or tribes or parts or groups within such caste, races or tribes as are deemed under Article 341. So for the determination of the scheduled caste and the scheduled tribe, Article 341 is significant. So, what is the definition? Then again, you'll find Article 342 for the determination of scheduled tribes. Besides, these provisions, that is the constitutional provisions. Now we will discuss other legal measures for the protection of the rights of SCs and STs. But we are going to conclude our lecture here, and in the next lecture we are going to discuss other legal measures for the protection of the rights of the scheduled castes and scheduled tribes, and then we will discuss other aspects of the status of the scheduled caste and scheduled tribe in the country. Thank you very much.